Today, we're going to talk about the role of the controller in the accounting department. First, we're going to talk about what the controller is, what they do, what they don't do, and whether you need one or not. The controller does three types of work. They oversee the accounting department operations. They're generally the leadership role within that accounting department. The CFO is over the controller, but the controller is typically more involved in that accounting day to day. They're focused on accuracy, consistency, and controls. That controls portion is where the controller title comes from. And with accounting, controls mean that we don't have one person doing all of the jobs. We split the jobs between people, and then we have specific controls in place to make sure that everything is accounted for, taken care of, and that we limit our exposure to errors, to fraud, and everything else. And then last, they are typically responsible for preparing reliable financial reports. So when we have the right controls in place, the systems in place, those systems allow for good financial reporting that the controller is then responsible for creating and distributing to the leadership. The CFO and anyone that's on that CFO's team is then responsible for more of the forward-looking stuff. The controller is typically looking backwards to make sure that all of that is taken care of. In businesses that can't have both a controller and CFO, you may, depending on the type of business, hire a more controller type that fills CFO type duties. But in other businesses that are more forward-looking, more growth mindset, you may hire a CFO that has to fill those controller duties temporarily until you can afford both roles. So what does this actually mean? What does it mean in their day-to-day work? A controller is going to supervise the accounting staff, set policies and procedures to ensure compliance, manage the monthly close, and work on special projects like M&A, systems implementations, audits, anything that falls under that accounting function of that business. The controller is going to maintain oversight and make sure that those things get done. It's easy for outsiders to look at the accounting department and not understand the importance of this role. But the controller's role that is done right is going to make sure that leadership and everyone else has good data so that that data is actionable and ready for them when they need it. To further understand what controllers do, we need to understand what controllers don't do. They don't decide on strategy. That is the CFO's job. The CFO is forward-facing, thinking more about strategy. They don't manage taxes. That's the CPA or some specialist that you may have. Some controllers may have a CPA or may have tax experience, but again, it's not required or necessarily a regular duty that a controller would fill. And then they're not the ones entering the transactions daily. That is going to be your accounting staff. Sometimes in small businesses, you have a controller that can, again, like I said earlier, flex up and do CFO roles, but can also flex down and do the daily transaction work that is needed for that business. So while these are the rules that we operate in, they're not hard and fast, and they flex with the needs of the business and where that business is. Controllers make sure that your numbers are trustworthy. And if you don't have one, you're building your strategy on shaky ground. So I'm a CFO. I view things from a strategic lens. But without good data, what we build our stuff off of doesn't really matter, right? Because if we don't have good data to build a good forecast, to build a good strategy, to build a good model, scenario, whatever that may look like, we are essentially flying blind. So that controller makes sure that that foundation is strong so that the strategy work can be done as is needed for that business. The CFO drives strategy. The controller ensures accuracy. We want to make sure that we understand this clear as day. If you go ask the controller for the strategy things, they may be able to provide you with the answers. But the controller is often so in the day-to-day accounting work that they may not see the bigger picture. If you have a controller in your business, they should be held accountable based off the accuracy of the data you're receiving. So, do you need a controller or not? If you're having problems with accuracy of your data, if your month-end close is not happening for weeks after the period, if you have a small team and you need someone that can manage those are good signs that you need a controller in your business. Feel free to ask whatever questions you may have. Put those down in the comments. I'm happy to answer. Like and subscribe, and thank you for watching.